Hi, it's Sue Greenwald here with Awakened Stories. I'm here today with Deanna Carr with the Mystical Moonlight. Hey, Deanna, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Awesome. I'm doing awesome. Today's topic is Madame Curie, Marie Curie.
Okay.
We know her as discovering radiation, and that was a whole thing that she created X-ray machines and all that. I want to go point by point through her life, and you tell us if it's true or what's happening there. Okay.
Uh,
So she was born in 1867 in Poland, and back then women were strictly forbidden from studying. But she had
hmm
a great interest in science, even at an early age. So she went to a place called the Flying University, which was like an underground place where women could study whatever topics they wanted. So she
hmm
went there, studied science, and in 1891, she moved to Paris and studied physics and math. And she lived in extreme poverty. And again, a lot of prejudice about women, their
hmm
abilities, whether they should be educated, etc. at the time.
Yes.
So she had great intellect, obviously, right? And
Yes.
it's not a common thing for a woman to study in general, but
No.
yeah, so she was suppressed there. In 1895, she married Pierre Curie, and they began to research radiation jointly together.
hmm Yes.
Okay, do we sound like we're on track so far with her life?
Yeah. So what happened is they ended up getting married. They
Yeah,
did have more of a partnership at
yeah,
first,
yeah.
because she was kind of like the brains, and he was the face because women were so suppressed.
Yeah.
No, he didn't believe in that, but he was there to help progress her and her understandings and her logic in a way that was going to be acceptable. So if they were married, it was going to be a little bit easier for
Right,
them
right.
to kind of work around versus just hiring her.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how they worked around the system. And she did more of the studies. Like he was smart. He did help her, but for the most part, it was her that was doing all the discoveries.
Okay. Okay. Interesting to know. So he
hmm
he sounds like a kind man, like he stepped in to help her so that she could study in the open, if you would, that she was his partner, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he not only saw her, potential, but he saw like how women were being treated and he didn't agree with that. A lot of people didn't,
Right.
but there were rules and regulations that, are harsh. So it was a way for them to get around. Now they did actually love each other, but starting off, it was more of that partnership of, you have this great intellect. Let's see where we can take it. And I want to help you, and
Awesome.
she respected that because, being suppressed for so long, just not being able to learn, which is something so simple. But just imagine not being able to go and, understand something, go and try to learn more or, ask questions. Like it
Right.
was very frowned upon. And he saw it as, a way to really progress her understanding, her logic. And he knew that there was potential for her.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so they discovered radium and polonium.
hmm
I'm going to say she mostly discovered that, and she
Yeah.
created the term radiation. Okay,
Yes.
radiation. Okay. Now they didn't know the dangers of radiation at that point, but
Yeah.
we're getting ahead of ourselves. Okay. So she did not want to patent her methods or anything. She really believed that everything should be free to people. Information
hmm
should be free. Okay. In 1903, she won the Nobel Prize for Physics, the first woman ever, which was quite impressive. Again, remember the prejudice that, women had back then. It's just inconceivable, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's mind blowing, but yeah, she did a huge, I don't know, service, but it was more of, going against the standards. And a lot of people, when you have something that's working against you and you're constantly fighting it and you're just trying to progress, it makes it challenging, but creating something and learning something that was invaluable, especially for her,
Right.
it was something that was worthwhile, and she saw it as a win in itself. So,
Right.
she did what she could to help people.
Awesome. Awesome.
Hmm.
So 1903, she wins the Nobel Prize in Physics, first woman ever.
Hmm.
1906, Pierre dies. And the story is that he got hit by, I'm going to say like a wagon or something, and she gets crushed or killed that way. And
Hmm.
of course, that changes her whole life, doesn't it?
Yeah. So he was. Um, It it wasn't an accident though. It was a setup because he was going to be doing something a little bit different and not seen in a positive set.
Mm.
He wanted to start a school for women. That way he could use their science center as a way to help support them, and that way they can learn and they can use their skills to help others. But it was still frowned upon.
Of course, the horror of a woman discovering something or doing something creative, right?
I know.
So he was assassinated then. Do you
Hmm.
know who did that and how and why? Like they didn't want the women to be educated, really,
Yeah.
was the base reason?
Yeah, it's suppression of education, and it's meant for women because they saw women as being the house servants.
Yep.
So if you keep people uneducated, if you keep people stupid, and that's where they belong, then going outside of that realm and that norm is usually frowned upon, and most people don't like breaking norms.
Right.
Um, he wanted to really help people in a larger light, and so he was assassinated. It was from the government, a small section of it. They sought out because if you have a group of, let's say, one woman and they're making a huge difference, what's going to happen when you get two women? What's going to happen if you get five? And they saw it as being a potential threat
Right.
to what they were doing. Now later on things did start to shift, but for the most part, they saw it as a huge risk and they wanted to take that risk out.
Okay. That is a real shame. That's a shame.
Yeah.
Okay. So then Marie, I'm sorry, becomes the first female professor in France at the university. Okay.
Hmm.
That's another accomplishment, another first.
Yeah.
So another one is that she won another Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1911. That's another big deal, right?
Hmm.
And she became the first person to, I think, to win two Nobel Prizes. All right.
Yeah.
But then it gets uglier. All right. So she's getting like a lot of like verbal attacks against her and her work. She faced public scandal because she was in a relationship with another physicist, and I don't even want to screw up his last name, Paul Langevin. And
Hmm.
she basically said, "Hey, none of your business." But she was heavily criticized for that. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you got to think one is a time frame.
Yeah.
Their thing is once somebody passes, you're only with that one person ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for somebody to move on was a horrendous thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like she was ahead of the time. Like she was there for a purpose to push things forward.
Yeah.
But just imagine if they didn't have all these prejudice against women, like she would have gone a lot further. She had a great mindset. She had a great work ethic. Yes, she had, a relationship with somebody else, but she wasn't cheating. She wasn't doing anything scandalous. But it also shows you how sexist people are because a guy could do that and it would be perfectly fine, but a woman
Yeah.
does it, it's this horrible ordeal.
Yeah.
Um, so if she didn't have all this stuff going against her, she would have done so much more
Yeah.
with what she could do.
Did she know that her husband was assassinated, killed on purpose, or did she think it was an accident?
She thought it was an accident, but there were signs that it was, more purposeful.
Okay.
She also knew like what his plans were because they had very open, honest communication. Um, and so it did give her the mindset of, keep your eyes open type thing, like
Yeah. Yeah.
something's coming for me.
Yeah.
But she's more of the person that wanted to keep pushing forward. Like she's already pushing the envelope as is. She's not going to stop because of something like that. Like she wanted to keep going because she had so much knowledge and she wanted to explore where that could go, which, it does end up hurting her in the end. But, when you have this desire to help others and you have the gifts of knowledge, you want to do what you can.
Right, right. She sounds like an amazing person, you know,
Hmm. Yeah.
from this little snippet. Okay, then she goes on to create the X-ray machine. Okay, and they're mobile. They're like big truck size things, but she takes it to World War One herself. So she trains people on how to help her, and they literally go to the front line of World War One to do X-rays and try to heal the soldiers.
Hmm.
Crazy, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So she then discovers or creates, sorry, creates a place called the Radium Institute, and it becomes renamed as the Curie Institute. So it's basically her school, and she trains future Nobel Prize winners, including her daughter. And she just kept researching and, considering how to use radiation. And she handled the radium directly. So, what we're taught is that radiation is super dangerous and that's what killed her. But I discovered this by accident. In
Hmm.
1934, she was taken to a sanatorium. Okay, so she was basically taken to a quiet mountain facility where she passed away. Oh, what happened there?
Okay, so she's able to bring people healing. Like if you can see what's happening on the inside, you're able to heal more. You're able to heal faster, and you're able to understand what the person's going through to, identify the situation. Um, they did not want her to get any more knowledge. And the best way to do so is to say somebody's insane, right? It's to say that somebody's going to die, they're going to hurt other people, they're already hurting people. I mean, come on, guys. She went on the front line. She's going to hurt more soldiers that went into war for themselves. Um, so it was a way for them to control her. It was a way for them to take control of the situation. And, she's made all of this with people saying she can't do it, she can't progress, she can't just no, 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 right? But there was a lot still going on in her mind. She had research that most people didn't know about. She had research that she didn't even really start or was hidden because she knew the consequences. Well, they got a hold of some of that research. They were able to get into her place. They went through her stuff and they found it. That is when they did take her in for her insanity, right? And that is how they started torturing her and killing.
They tortured her?
They did torture her to get more information. They when you have potentials on not only how to help heal people, but how to make devices that they could learn from, they could use in their own weaponry, they're going to want to do it.
Okay. So she did die.
She did.
And how
After
did
a
she?
few years.
Oh, she was there a few years.
Mhm.
Okay. And
They said they took her in, and then it was probably like a few months later she passed away silently, quietly. No, she was there in the basement for about 2 years.
oh man.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah. So if you look at, any of the biographies or whatever, it says that she lived in this peaceful sanitarium for a very short time and then passed away. And because she had a chronic illness of it's called aplastic anemia, most likely caused by radiation poisoning. And that's what we're taught,
Mhm.
right? In
Yeah.
school. Um, but you're saying she was tortured and kept in a basement for 2 years. Wow. Okay. So again, first person to receive the Nobel Prize twice. First woman to, person to invent all this stuff, and they tortured her for her information. They couldn't just let her be and just, and try to discover what she was going to invent.
Yeah.
Okay. Now here's an interesting point. I thought her notes, all right, if again you read a biography, the notes are supposedly radioactive and are currently to this date being kept in a lead box somewhere. Does that even sound right? No. They kept her notes.
There's now radiation in small doses is not going to be that harmful.
Uh-huh.
Radiation in large doses is harmful, but they are acting like that she had too much radiation when in reality she actually had it more controlled than it is now.
Oh,
Um, so it wasn't as harmful as people were thinking it today.
okay.
And then they were using that radiation as an excuse to keep her notes privatized because she had some really big pieces that were in the works, and she discovered a lot of things that if people had access to would, X-nay the whole medical industry in itself. Like she was actually discovering ways to reverse the human body to its more origin state at that point in time.
Okay.
So just think like right now, the medical field is crazy. You just had a war where the medical field is probably booming with money. And why would they want that to stop?
Right.
I mean, it's
Wow.
still the same thing. Why would they want it to stop? It's a
Right.
$1 trillion industry.
Right. So when all right, so here's how I got the hit that we should talk about it. It crossed my mind a few months ago, but I was reading a fiction book and this woman had mentioned her being in this asylum, and I was like,
Mhm.
boing, okay, something's going on there. I know it's
Yeah.
not right. So, and what do you think caused her extreme curiosity and intellect? Was she just a regular person that was really focused? Was she special in some way? Why was she able to do all of this?
She did have a deeper understanding
Yeah,
for that specific thing.
yeah,
It's kind of a mix. Like she wasn't like super special, but she just had a hyper interest in radiation and in science in itself. And that just kind of led her down the rabbit hole. And because of her hyper fixation,
yeah,
she was able to understand it on a more complex level.
yeah,
And she did get like she would get messages and she would get, some knowledge like through her dreams because she was not, I'm not gonna say super spiritual, but she did have, guides that really wanted her to move forward because they saw her potential. So
right.
they would give her snippets and that would lead her down a further rabbit hole. And then it would build up that curiosity and she would get more understanding because of those little cookie crumbs.
Ah, okay. Interesting. Interesting. Now, whatever
Mhm.
happened to her daughter Irene? Like she kind of followed in her mother's footsteps. And I didn't research that. I don't know anything more, but like, did she believe the party line that her mother died of radiation poisoning? Did she continue her work? What happened there?
She did continue some work, but because there were so much going against her, she did end up not continuing. At
Yeah.
a certain point, there were threats against her. Um, because she did have understanding of what her mom did. She did have that science aspect to her
Yeah.
since it was just, taught to her.
Yeah.
But she did know the outcome. So she did kind of pull back because she had the understanding of they have enough.
Yeah.
Why should we keep sacrificing? Because you think about it, both her parents have died because of it.
Okay.
She already felt like she lost out on a lot.
Right.
So she didn't want to keep losing out, especially after having multiple threats herself.
Right. I don't blame her. Okay. Anything else we need to know about this story?
I don't think so. I mean, if you guys have questions, always put it in the comments so we can
Yeah.
always answer them.
Yeah. So put them in the comments, and I thank you so much for your time, Deanna. Appreciate it.
Of course.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.